This is your boy Rolando here on XY Spark, and today I am so excited. We are celebrating 1 year being on air. Can you believe it? Already, XY Spark has been bringing to you rich quality programs on this platform as we continue to promote healthy masculinity and encourage men to be the best version of themselves. And I could not ask to have a better guest with us today. We have a good acquaintance of mine. Okay, his name is Kuti, and Kuti is here today to share with us from his experience and expertise some of the things that he has seen as it relates to healthy masculinity. Kuti, welcome.
Man, it's great to be here. I'm honored to be able to share your platform. Congratulations on 1 year, man. I guess I get the anniversary show, huh?
You do. You get the anniversary show, and believe it or not, yesterday was my Earth Day, or they say birthday, And so I bask in the reality that I launched XY Spark on my birth month. And so what we're hoping to do, Kuti, from now on is a lot more collaboration, a lot more people like yourself on our program, just to continue to prepare or provide a space for men to come and just be men, let their hair down, Kuti.
I did that a long time ago, man.
And just relax. So Kuti, tell us about yourself. What do you do?
Okay, so like you said, I'm Kuti, known in industry circles as Cootie Mac, and basically I'm a former record executive and musician, as you can see in the backdrop, turned fitness professional. I've been dubbed as of late the fitness philosopher because I do like to take the lessons that I have seen, observed, and actually experienced in getting myself and other people, countless other people, healthier, but also applying those into just everyday life. So there are a bunch of lessons that you can learn as you reinvent your body from unhealthy to healthy, as you reintroduce yourself to the healthier self you used to be. And those lessons, biologically speaking and academically speaking, also fit and apply to so many different aspects of people's lives. My brand is BYBD, Be Your Best Daily. So that goes right along with what this is what makes us such a perfect fit with the XY Spark, because we're talking to men about how to be their better selves incrementally on a daily basis.
Wow, Kuti, I like the word that you use. They refer to you as the health philosopher.
Right.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about what's your philosophy and your approach to health, being a fitness instructor?
Precisely. Like I said, I'm all about people being their best on a daily basis. All we're ever promised and given, to be really honest. I mean, there's nothing wrong with planning and there's nothing wrong with reflection. Those are two very powerful tools that center us as human beings. But the truth is, all we're ever really granted is today. No matter how healthy I make myself or anybody else, I could step out and get hit by a car tomorrow. So I can't extend the life of anyone. But what I can do is make sure that the life that you have right now is of the highest quality based on 3 pillars that I like to use. I call them my super trio. There's super facts, super foods, and super moves. The super facts are the information that absolutely underscore and validate every one of my methodologies. The super foods are really the primary literal thing that fuel us to help us be our best. And while there are a whole bunch of healthy foods, what I've really paid attention to throughout my entire career as a fitness professional and as a nutritionist is looking at what foods get you to your goals the quickest, the most efficiently, and the safest. So natural foods, superfoods, and then super moves, obviously the exercises. And even with that, what I found is in this era, there's so many things bombarding us and bombarding our schedules. So while I have no problem with people who want to take a long time and exercise in the gym for 2, 3, 4 hours, I'm not about that. I wasn't even about that before I was a fitness professional. I was the kind of person that if I was spending any more than 60 minutes in the gym, I was actually wasting time at some point. So and even now I've become even more efficient because my schedule's gotten even tighter, and I'm not alone in this. So my super moves are actually exercises that I've researched and executed and used that actually work lightning fast with the same results that whole entire super long, drawn out, protracted workouts would. So some super moves are as short as 4 minutes. And in 4 minutes, you will absolutely feel absolutely worked out.
Wow.
So you can work out as long or short as you want, but most of us don't have that kind of time. So my super moves, my super facts, my super foods are my super trio. And that's what I use to help you be your best daily.
Wow, wow, man. I've never heard about this approach, super facts, super foods, and super moves. It sounds very exciting. Let me ask you, Kuti, we are passionate about healthy masculinity. We are also quite aware that society and the expectations around sometimes throws like a boulder into the understanding of masculinity and balancing that. And you as a male, can you tell us a little bit about what does masculinity mean to you and how have you been balancing that life as a male?
So, the interesting thing is, while my father is still a very prominent figure in my life, and actually could technically be considered the trigger for me pivoting from the music business into fitness, I have a lot of strong women around me. I was raised by a strong woman in my mother. I have strong aunts. My sister, even, she's an incredibly strong woman. Even the next generation underneath me, my uncle's daughters, my cousins, they're like my nieces. They're like my first daughters. They're strong young women. And while we're at it, my daughter is already proven to be a potent force in and of herself. So I think one of the most masculine things a man in this era, in the 21st century, can do is actually be very comfortable with the power of women.
Wow.
Right? That's the one thing, like, because masculinity, I'm old enough, I'll be 50, in a matter of months, maybe next year. And, what I was just kind of groomed to understand masculinity to be was very Neanderthal and very resistant to a lot of the energy and the power that women have to offer. And that's not masculinity. Like, letting a woman be everything that she can be and not being intimidated by it is probably one of the most manly things you can do. And then still maintain who you are, and not just because the rules say so. Because let's just face it, as men, we have privileges. Society has just kind of laid out certain privileges, that just kind of take for granted that men are stronger, take for granted that men are whatever, fill in the blank. And because I'm privy to very strong women and revere them, I realize that, if the rules didn't say that men were just by default, quote unquote, the leaders or the stronger sex, whatever you want to call it, if the rules didn't say it, I could come with a lot of questions and a lot of scenarios where I'd be like, hey, these are some things that women do that men wouldn't even want to come near or deal with or approach or don't have the heart to. So that said, being a man and being responsible, knowing when to assert your masculinity, those are all very, very, very crucial things that, to me, define me as a man.
Well, Kuti, do you know that one of the facts that we are noticing is there are several men who are not okay with that. There are
Yeah.
several there are men who feel threatened. Hey, if my partner is working more money than I am, I'm not playing my part as a man.
And the tricky part about that is that in some cases, even if they weren't uncomfortable with that notion. Let's say they were absolutely like, what? No, it's fine. If my woman's making more money than me or she's doing these things, that's fine. There are some times where, because of just the way society has been flowing for so long, there are women that buy into that. And that's a tough thing to kind of have to navigate, where it's like, on one hand, you could have somebody who's absolutely, just forward-thinking, modern, progressive woman, but at some point, expects a man to fill into a stereotypical role. And so how progressive as a man, can you be in that scenario? You have to really be able to, it's a moving target sometimes. You have to really be able to be judicious about about what your situations are, you know, how you're moving around with who you're moving with, because you could very much be as progressive as you want to be as a man and find yourself in a situation where when everything comes down, the woman's still going to look to you to be stereotypically a man about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that can be tricky, man. But you know, one has to just figure it out and do their best to keep their balance.
Okay. Could you tell us some more about your work? As you work with men, what are some of the barriers that you've seen? What are some of the main things that you notice men struggle with as it relates to their fitness and their understanding of what fitness is?
A lot of times with men, it's preventing them from injury. Because a lot of times men want to just jump right in and just go right into the frying pan. You just go as hard as they can immediately, and they get hurt.
Go hard or go home, eh?
Right. You know, no pain, no gain, all that kind of stuff. And you know, I'm not about injury. You know, I'm about getting people fit. So sometimes they'll be like, well, I should be doing more weight. You know, this isn't enough. You know, you don't have any heavier exercise. And I'm like, you'll feel this tomorrow. Trust me. But, you know, don't, but sometimes, you know, you have to kind of pull the brakes on men in that regard. I will also say that a lot of times you might have men who won't be as forthright about their injuries. You know, so they might feel uncomfortable about something and they're not as quick to just say, hey, this isn't right, or this doesn't feel good. You know, this doesn't feel good, or something feels uncomfortable. And it's not till later on, they'll be like, you know what, I'm injured. And I'm like, well, what happened? Oh, well, you know, when we did this exercise 2 weeks ago, I kind of felt something, but I didn't say anything. You know, and again, injury is never my objective. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm out here hurting everybody. But what I am saying is, you know, I have run into that sometimes where I have to kind of, with experience, know to just ask questions. I had a classic example. I was training somebody just earlier today. And when we started, I said, okay, look, do you have this weight dumbbell and this weight dumbbell? There are two different weights. And he said, yes, I have both. I said, okay, look, let's start with, we're going to start with one. And he grabbed the heavier one. And I said, no, start with the lighter one. And ego kicked in like, oh, no, I'm strong enough to do this. And I said, I'm not questioning your strength, brother. What I want you to do is I want to see if this first one, because I know this exercise better than you do. So I want to see if this exercise is suitable. If indeed the lighter dumbbell works, then we're good. If it's too light for you, then we've warmed up the muscle at least, and now we can progress to the heavier weight. But what I would hate to do is start you heavier than you're ready for. You mess yourself up and you get hurt. Now you can't even lift the lighter weight, because the main ability when it comes to exercise and fitness is availability. And if you're injured, you can't exercise. So I would lose progress if I just made it heavier first. And because they trusted me, they understood. And the funny part was the lighter weight was plenty.
There, it's powerful. And as guys, Kuti, we naturally, we step out, we want to, ego goes before us a lot, and one of my expressions is, I say a lot, which is, there are two guys who really don't keep company. It's ego and humility. And if you are in a space where you want to be taught, it requires some humility. It requires for me to realize that, hey, what, if I came to this guy, let me trust that he knows what he's doing. So it sounds like you meet sometimes stuff. How do you deal with stuff like that as a professional, as a health coach? How do you, especially when you're working with men?
What I do with people in general, but especially with men, is I meet people where they are. So I like to ask a lot of questions. I trust my experience, but I also trust my assessment of people as well. And so I don't take anything for granted. I don't do cookie cutter training. I don't just have one kind of training and it just applies to everybody. Even with my 90-day program, which is a packaged program that's separate from my individual one-on-one training, while it is a packaged program, I still, even within that program, will tinker and tweak and customize per each individual and their goals. So I do I like to ask a lot of questions. I like to get to the root of what people's actual fitness agendas are. Because a lot of times when people are trying to get in better shape, like most of the people that I'm used to working with, I work with everybody, but the people that I tend to have, at least lately, tend to have the most exposure to and the most success with, are people who have gotten to a certain stage in life where at one point they were in great shape. So they know what it's like to be in great shape. And some of them are still doing the things that got them in great shape 10, 15 years ago, but it's not working now. And they're at their wits' end. Or they're people who never really been in great shape, but know for a fact they could be in better shape. And they've tried something or some things and they're not working. Or they're people who just look up in the mirror one day and say, man, I used to be fill in the blank, and I don't see that person anymore. Those are the people that I tend to see. So when I see them, the people who are doing that or in that space, those folks, usually there's something that's underlying more so than I just want to lose 15 pounds. There's a reason they want to lose 15 pounds. Even I got into fitness, like I was talking about my father earlier. I got into fitness because I saw my father almost die like 13 years ago from high blood pressure. And when I watched him flatline twice, so I basically saw him die, to be honest, but he was revived, he was in the hospital, and he's fine now. When I saw that happen, the first thing that went through my mind was, man, the last time I went to the doctor, even though I've always generally looked like this, just to be honest, I've always looked in shape. When I went to the doctor, I remember him saying to me, your cholesterol is like on the high side of good, the high side of good, low side of bad. Like that, my numbers were starting to dance up. And there were legitimate reasons for it, although I wouldn't acknowledge them back then. And I'm looking at myself like, okay, I look fine, but my body chemistry is saying something different. And meanwhile, the man with whom I share at least 50% of my DNA is starting to fall apart. And it wasn't because he was obese or any of that kind of stuff. Like if you looked at him, him standing next to me is like looking at like, I don't know if you watch like cartoons, but like, David Banner and the Incredible Hulk, like I would be the Incredible Hulk and he'd be this slim, slender guy. Yeah. And so you wouldn't look at him and say, oh, from the outside looking in, this guy is unhealthy, but his systems work. So again, if it was just about the vanity of looking good, I'd already figured that out as far as like, weightlifting and exercise. But I wanted to be healthy. I didn't want to be in that situation where down the line, my daughter would be looking and like praying to God that I don't die based off of something that I could fix. So again, even based off that experience, I approach everybody from that perspective. Okay, I know that you want to be healthy. I know you want to lose weight or whatever the case may be, or gain muscle, whatever, but let's figure out why. And once I get to what that specific driving issue, personal cause is, it makes everything open up. And now I can speak to that. And that's how the clients trust me, because I'm always going to address them from that standpoint, more so than just the vanity of, losing a double chin.
A lot of people, Kuti, thank you. A lot of people that hear about fitness, all they think about is looking good on the outside. I have a six pack. I have some mean puppies up here. I when I go to the beach and I'm wearing my shorts, or for ladies, their bikinis, they're like, "Woo, that body looks good." But as I'm listening to you, it sounds like your work goes beyond the surface.
Yes, I start from the inside. What I learned, even for myself, is when you are intrinsically healthy, when you're viscerally healthy, when you're healthy from the inside, super fact, when you're healthy from the inside, all the outside stuff takes care of itself. Now, what I used to get caught up in, and a lot of people do this, is, when I was in the music business, I would travel a lot. So I'd always be in airports. When you go to the airports, there's always little convenience stands, with all these magazines on them. And every airport I would go to would always have some kind of men's fitness, men's health type magazine with this guy on there with a 30 pack and, he's all vascular. And I'd see it and I'd be like, even me being in shape, I'd be like, man, this guy is ripped. And I'll pull the magazine, I'd get it, I'd read it, try to do the workouts he was doing. And, I'd have some success, but I wouldn't always end up looking like that person. I wouldn't have that person's chest or this person's shoulders or that person's abs or this person's arms. It wouldn't work. And when I really got to the essence of like exercising and nutrition, eventually what I saw what my best looked like. And it didn't look bad at all. To be honest, it didn't look bad at all. It didn't look like the guys on the magazines, but I didn't look bad at all. But when I saw the difference, I was like, okay, this is what my chest looks like when it's at its healthiest. This is what my shoulders look like when they're at their healthiest. Oh, look, this is what my triceps look like when they're, when they're cut. Oh, that's what my six pack looks like. When I started to see that, I realized like, okay, there's my best, be your best. That's my best, okay? And the only way to be my best is to fundamentally be healthy from the inside out. Like I said, when I went to my doctor, when my dad was sick, he could look at me and tell that I was somebody who exercised on purpose. And this is before I was a trainer. But yet I knew that I was headed down the same exact path my dad was about to crash into. And the lesson there was, you can have all this stuff and it doesn't matter. If your heart's not right, if your blood's not right, if your body fat, body sugar, blood sugar and all that stuff's not correct, you're just fooling yourself. But if you have that stuff correct, it all starts to show. Your skin clears up, your eyes get wider, your brain thinks faster. When you want to lose weight, you lose weight faster. When you want to exercise, you have more power. All of those things start to show, but it starts from the inside, the superfoods.
Wow, guys, I hope you guys are I'm excited about this because notice what Kuti said, be your best. And that challenges a lot of men, Kuti, who struggle with this inferiority complex. We go to the gym and we see a guy over there who is all chiseled and we're thinking, how do I get that? Versus, hey, okay, how do I make the best with what I have? So I really love that approach, Kuti. That's great,
Let me tell you, and it doesn't stop just because I know better. I mean, think about this. I'm a trainer, right? So when I'm in the gym working out, somebody else is working out, there's like this implicit pressure. Like, because like, okay, you're the trainer, let's see what you do. When I was running 5K races, oh my goodness, like I'm running and there's people who would know me, like, oh, that's Kuti, he's the trainer. And meanwhile, some 60-year-old woman might pass me. And I'm like, and I remember the very first time I ran a competitive race, all of that ego kicked in. All of my athletic ego kicked in. And I saw it. I'll tell you this one story. I'll never forget it. It was an 8K. And this boy, I think I must have met him after the fact, but I saw this kid, he's like 12 years old, just passes me about maybe halfway through the race. And I was getting tired. I'd never run, a race like this before, or at least not as an adult. And so I was running and I saw the boy pass me. And I remember someone telling me, don't worry about anyone, just run your own race. But, I didn't have any experience. I saw the boy say, okay, at least I'm going to do is keep up with this little kid. I'm going to at least stay on this little kid. And then at the end, I'm going to pass him. And as we were running, I just remember getting a little foggy. Also, I didn't see him anymore. He was gone. And I was like, where did the kid go? And I was just getting more and more tired. And when the race was over, I saw him and it turned out he was some kid. He had flown into the States from Australia to do this race, all this stuff. So, I guess he was a little bit higher level, but he was only 12. And I remember as I buckled down and was catching my breath, the race wasn't even over. I had to kind of just stop. I was feeling woozy. And a woman rolled up to me and just encouraged me, said, hey, come on, buddy, you can do it. And and this woman was shorter than me. She was wider than me. And she was just like, you can do it, and just kept going. And here I was, I could not keep up with her. And she kept trying to encourage me. And so I'm thinking, okay, a little boy, this slightly, respectfully speaking, this pudgy woman, they all are running faster than me. And I'm trying to keep up with them. And again, because I'm thinking I'm the trainer, I'm Mr. BYBD. Why can't I keep up with these people? But it wasn't they were running a different race than I was running. Now, there comes a time later on where I was placing in the top 7, top 5 of my age group, top 15 percentile of 2,000-3,000 people running. So there was a ton of people that were behind me, but the people that were in front of me to this day, even when I think about how fast those people were going, it's not even close. But I was doing better per my standard. I was marking my race per my standard. And when I started focusing on my standard, I started to improve upon my standard and sort of improving upon the field. But if I was trying to just run everybody else's race, I would just be destroying myself time and time and time again. So as men, yeah, we get thrown into this ego cyclone of, trying, just looking left and right at what everybody else is doing. When really what you want to do is set your floor. Because that day when I ran that race where I broke down 2 or 3 times, and where the boy passed me from Australia, and where the chubby woman passed me as well, what I remembered was when I finished, 2 things happened. Number 1, I didn't die. Came close to it. I had food poisoning, it turned out, but that's a whole other story. But I didn't die. Number 2, I now had a number recorded on the files. Okay, boom. This is how fast you ran this day. And that day, what I thought about was, if I train with intention, I can do better than this time, next time. So then I started doing, that was my floor. As bad as I felt, as out of condition as I felt, that was my floor. That was my baseline time. So set a baseline for yourselves, fellas. And then after you do that, just work to improve on that baseline. And as long as you get better than that baseline, you are improving. And the more you're improving, the more you're being your best. And when you are being your best, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing, what everybody else looks like. It doesn't matter at all, because it starts to resonate and emanate through you. And your best is always going to be the best. Your best is always going to be the best. So if you were making XYZ money last year, and your goal is to make more, and you make more this year, congratulate yourself. Don't be like, well, I'm still not making what that person is making. Don't worry about what that person is making. Make what you need to make.
Kuti, man, that is so powerful, man. That is powerful, Kuti. Man, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I just wanted to push. I wanted to push this in there because you said some powerful things, but here's what's resonating that I want to remind the XY Spark listeners of. Kuti said this, guys, whatever happens, run your own race and don't be distracted. That in a nutshell is what he's saying, and I want the brothers to catch this. I want the ladies who follow us to go tell their partners or brothers, run your own race and don't get distracted, because when you focus on everything else around you, you miss the lesson that you need to learn in it. So Kuti, thank you, man. That's powerful, man. That's
no problem, brother, because that's the whole thing. I mean, and like I said, I still from time to time would get a little guilty and start looking, oh man, that person's driving this car, that person has this place. But it's like, nah, man, look, if that's for you, you can get there. But first, what you have to do is just improve upon where you are. But when you start looking at whatever people, because the thing is, sometimes you don't know what it takes for somebody else to have certain things. When I worked in the music business, that's a classic example. When I worked in the music business, there were people who I knew made more money than me. Like, I was making good money, don't get me wrong, but I knew people who were making more money than me. And I'll say, man, I want to have that person's money. And the reason why I thought they were making so much money, not because I was wrong, but they would live in a manner that showed that they were making all this, money, right? But then when I get a chance to sit them down and I'd ask them, well, okay, so, what do your bills look like? Or, how much mortgage are you paying? Or, how many expenses do you have? Or how much debt are you in? I found that at the time I was in zero debt. And these people were revolving cycles of debt after debt, and they were never on top of their bills. You say, oh man, I remember one person just saying, yeah, man, if I could just have 5,000 cash in the bank, that would be good. And I was like, 5,000, that's it? Just 5,000? And so for me, I'm thinking I was looking up to this person at one point, but I was like, because they had a BMW and all this stuff, but I was like, but you don't have 5,000 in the bank? And for me, that was easy. So who really had what? And I started to find myself teaching some of these people how to manage their expense accounts and all this kind of stuff, because they were just in financial disarray, but they like to spend, they like to show. And so then I started realizing wow, do I really need to have what you have or do what you do? I remember talking to one of my bosses, one of my CEOs at a label, and I said how I had never been somewhere. I think it was Las Vegas at the time. And he's like, okay, cool, we're gonna go. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we're going to go. We're just going to go. He calls plane, private jet, and literally we just go. And I said, well, I don't have clothes. He said, don't worry about it. We'll take care of that when we get there. So I was like, wow, this is cool. This is my first time flying on a private jet. I said, so you have a private jet? And he said, oh, no, I don't have a private jet. I have access to a private jet. He said, you don't want a private jet, Cootie. I was like, why? He said, because you have to pay for the gas, you have to pay for the hangar, you have to store it, you have to keep it, you have to maintain it. He said, you don't want any of that. He said, what I do is I have somebody that I can call that will always have a private jet available to me when I want it. as opposed to me owning it because I don't want to spend that kind of money. Now, again, if I didn't ask that question, there might have been this longing for me to one point have my own jet or have my own boat. But I learned a lesson that day. You know, he's like, hey man, you know, I could afford it, but why would I spend my money there? And some people won't even ask that question, but they'll buy the jet. They'll have the same amount of money, but they're spending their money completely differently than my boss was. You know, so there's a million ways to get to what you want to get to. And especially when it comes down to, just like I said, with guys or people in general, to be honest, because women have just as much capital power at this point. You know, when it comes down to having things and having stuff, there's a way to do it. You know, there's a way you can, because honestly, I remember somebody telling me a while ago, and this is another important super fact that I'm borrowing from somebody, was that, you know, at the end of the day, being wealthy a lot of times is about the experiences that wealth can bring you. The ability to travel to a certain location, the ability to drive a certain car, fly a certain class, right? But if you could have that experience and not necessarily have to own that experience from beginning to end, like I was talking about with a plane, owning the plane versus having access to the plane, what's the difference really? Aside from you keeping more money in your pocket. So you can aspire towards these things and run these races. Like I was trying to run and keep up with that 12-year-old boy to the point where I ran myself dizzy and couldn't even see him. I'll tell you another race story that kind of goes along with this. I was in this one race one time, and I remember I saw this guy, and, you know, every now and then I still get a little mid-race competitive. I saw this guy and he just passed me. And I was just like, man, that guy was fast. Then a couple minutes down the line, I saw him just standing still, just breathing. And I passed him. I thought, got you back. A couple minutes later, he passed me. I was like, wait, am I dreaming? Did I just? And then a couple minutes later, I saw him just standing still. What I learned later, what that guy was doing was he would sprint for a certain duration and rest for a certain duration and then sprint. So every time he passed me, he was running at as fast as he could. And because I was running the whole time, my pace wasn't as good. But what he ended up doing by taking those little breaks in between was he was able to conserve and create some energy and then go in bursts. So in bursts, starting, stopping, he ran a faster time than I did running the whole time. Now, I'm not saying I would advise myself to race that way. I think he was probably training himself for another race, another, you know, more higher profile race. But I learned a lesson there too. In methodology, you can get to the same destination, but doing it differently. But if all I worried about was the time I saw him pass me, I'd be thinking that, man, I'm running too slow when I'm just running differently. And we both got to the finish line.
Come on, man. Listen, Kuti, man. Guys, these lessons that we're getting, we're definitely getting super facts and super brain food, okay? And we're definitely being taught some super moves. You know, so I think, Kuti, your conversation has kept you right in line with your three pillars that you mentioned, man. So thank you so much, Kuti, man. It's powerful, man. Let me ask you, man, what if our listeners want to reach out to you? How do they connect? You know, where are you located?
So I'm located in the United States in Washington, D.C., but I'm worldwide because I'm available to everybody virtually via the internet. So when you want to hit me, I would say I love directly communicating with people. So matter of fact, if somebody's listening or watching this right here on the XY Spark, if you put XY Spark in my direct message, I'll give you a 15-minute free consultation, whatever it is that you're looking for in terms of your fitness. I'll give you 15 minutes where we'll get down to the nuts and bolts of what's going on with you. And I promise you, at the end of that conversation, you will have something that if you just pay attention to what I tell you and do what I ask you to do, you'll be healthier than you were before you started the conversation. So you can find me on Instagram at Cootie Mack, KutiMack. You can find me on Facebook, BYBD Fitness. And we'll leave it there. Those are probably the two best ways to get to me. And like I said, direct message me, hit me in the messenger either on Facebook or on Instagram. And if you put XY Spark, I'll know that this is where you heard me, and I will give you a free 15-minute consultation just because I want to help you be healthier.
Guys, listen to me, man. Don't miss it, man. I'm going to be reaching out to Kuti to get some free consultation, because I mean, look at this guy. He's looking good, man. And earlier he said he's going to be 50 in a short span. So whatever he's doing, it's working. You know, Kuti, we appreciate you, buddy, and we're glad that you gave us the time here on XY Spark. And all my listeners, wherever you are around the world, I would encourage you, connect with Kuti. If you can't reach him, just reach out to me and say, hey, Rolando, I'd like to talk to Cootie Mac. How do I get him so that we can connect? And as usual, we continue to tell you something similar to what Kuti talked about today, that we believe that personal development is not an event, it's a lifestyle. And
Yes.
Cootie has three powerful approaches that I believe will help to enhance and promote that healthy lifestyle. Cootie, we appreciate you. Thank you for being here with us on XY Spark. And listen, we hope that we will have you again in the future. Maybe we have a
I'd
summit.
love to. I'd love to. Let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm here to help. This platform is amazing. I especially love helping brothers or people close to brothers that need help. You know, people close to men that need help. I'm here. I'm here to help.
Fantastic.
So you
Thank
got
you
a
so
great
much.
platform. It's an honor to be here with you, brother.
Thank you, Cootie. So as usual, this is your boy Rolando on XY Spark, where we continue to remind you that we believe that there is a spark in you. We'll see you again real soon.